Welcome, everyone. I'd now like to officially call the meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to order. We would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash, unceded First Nation, and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis, whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis peoples and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters. The purpose of this meeting is to review applications to sever or minor variances as they apply to certain lands within the municipality of Meaford. Let me first introduce the municipal staff in attendance. Denise McCarl, Manager of Planning Services, and Gabe Pucci, Development Services Assistant, who also functions Secretary Treasurer of this committee. Committee members, to my far right, Mr. David Cramp, Mr. Ed Ormsby, and my name is Terry Williams. I'm the chair of this department. Normally, there are 5 committee members. 2 are not here today. Unfortunately, they could not attend this meeting, but by the bylaw, 3 committee members constitutes a quorum for this committee. The committee is legally required to make decisions that conform to the Planning Act, as well as existing county and local official plans. Based on these documents, as well as additional relevant correspondence, the municipal planning staff have prepared detailed reports, provided this committee with their recommendations. The community is encouraged to share their thoughts about a proposed application. For those who may be joining us remotely via Zoom or are here in person, you will have the opportunity to speak should you wish to do so. I will call upon you at the appropriate time. It's also appropriate to ask questions you may have as it relates to these applications. Your constructive comments help this committee make informed decisions. The applicant or their representatives will also have the opportunity to respond to questions from the committee members and the community. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the decision of these applications may do so by phoning 519-538-1060, extension 1120, or through email to planning@meaford.ca. Gabe, are there any changes to the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no changes to this agenda. Thank you very much.
Before we conduct the public meetings, I must ask committee members if they have any pecuniary interest or anything of a general nature which would prevent them from making an unbiased decision in these matters. No. Hearing none, we will proceed. Have you, committee members, had the opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting? Are there any changes necessary to be made? May I have a motion then to adopt the minutes? Ed and David, all in favor? That motion is carried. I'm going to actually change the order of the agenda, and I hope you'll understand. I think the first one is something we have dealt with before, and it is a minimal change. So I'm going to consider the application for a minor variance under Section 45 of the Planning Act for the lands known as 158185 7th line. The requirement to hold this meeting must be 10 days notice as prescribed in the Planning Act. Gabe, can you please confirm that the public notice was provided at least 10 days in advance? And if so, can you please summarize the application and provide us with any comments that have been received?
Through you, Mr. Chair, notice was given on July 12, 2024, giving more than the required 10 days notice. A previous minor variance decision approved through file A15-2023 contained a clerical error. This new application is brought to by the municipality to resolve the clerical error. The property owner would like to build an accessory building on the property for storage for the existing Chantico business. Thank you. And regarding comments, we received comments with no concerns or objection or recommendation from Grey County, Grey Sobel Conservation Authority, and Ministry of Transportation Ontario.
Thank you.
No comments with the objection or recommendation were received. Thank you.
Denise, is there any additional information?
I can just give a little background. So yes, a few months ago, we had this application before us, and just so you're aware, there's actually no change to what the proposal is. It's just how we calculated those two asks. So the two variances, one for the height that we gave just a few months ago. The building is exactly the same in the sketch that they provided when I went back through the files. We wondered where the error had happened. It just was in partly the owner and partly ourselves calculating those two numbers. Sometimes the numbers are really small in some of the drawings, and we often in planning get sort of a much less, let's call a much smaller file size, so a lot more pixelated, a lot less visible. So when it was calculated, it looks like between the planner and the applicant, they used the wall height of the building versus the actual midpoint of the roof. And the wall height is the 16 feet or whatever it is, 16 feet instead of the 21 feet. So that's why. For that one. And then I'm really not sure exactly, I don't have Helena here for that benefit to be able to explain it further, but the calculation of lot coverage, just probably, I'll call it bad math, because it's exactly the same as the proposal you had before. The drawing is slightly changed in that we have a more robust drawing, but I didn't want to bring it to you because I didn't want to cause confusion. So we're bringing back the exact same drawing. The only difference is that through the feedback that we received from the Ministry of Transportation, the property owner is eliminating the front entrance at Highway 26. So they're going to go just to the two other entrances. And that's really the only actual change. We're going through site plan control right now, and they're also working on their building permit. And that is when the zoning review noticed these two anomalies. So that's why I'm bringing this back to you. We've initiated it, acknowledging the error on the part of the municipality so that we can help facilitate this project forward and not make the person go back to the drawing board when we kind of acknowledge it was two parties that made an error. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Any members of the committee have any questions relative to this? Can I have the suggested decision then, Gabe, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The suggested decision is that the Committee of Adjustment grant minor variance application number A06-2024 to permit the development of the lands in accordance with the site sketch. Following decision, following conditions apply, that the proposed addition shall occur substantially in accordance with the site plan in this schedule and drawings provided with the application A06-2024. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any comments, questions? May I have a motion then to approve? David and all in favor? That motion is carried. Next steps, please, Gabe.
You, Mr. Chair. Now the applicant is not here, but she will receive an email with the decision and notice of appeal period. The applicant can also take down the sign from their property, and we will make sure to let her know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll sign these both at the end at the same time. We'll sign it both at the end, okay? Now, we're going to proceed to file A04-2024. This is an application for a minor variance under Section 45 of the Planning Act for the lands known as 126 Starlight Lane. The requirement to hold this meeting is that there must have been at least 10 days notice as prescribed in the Planning Act, Gabe, can you please confirm that the planning notice or the public notice was provided at least 10 days in advance? And if so, would you please summarize the application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the notice was given on July 4th, 2024, giving more than the required 10 days notice. The property owner seeks to construct two retaining walls on the property to facilitate the construction of a dwelling. The retaining walls are proposed to be 1.32 meters to 1.67 meters in height and are considered accessory structure per zoning bylaw 60-2009. Comments have been received with generally no concern from Gray County. However, Grace Harbor Conservation Authority proposes deferral, or anyway, deferral is recommended until topographical survey and geotechnical study are completed to determine the limits of the stable slope. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Denise, are there any additional comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So following the receipt of the GSEA comments, they were provided to the applicant. I did reach out to the applicant to see if they had plans to address the comments, because these comments were received after Helena had drafted her report, and we had kind of finalized it, even though we did get them in time for the agenda, but we just had pre-done the report with vacation time and things like that. We haven't heard back from the applicant. I hope that they're online now. Do we have confirmation from Bill? Is anyone on today on Zoom?
Is there anyone?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you.
So that's good. I hadn't heard at the time, by the time of heading to the meeting today. One of the things when we get comments like this that recommend deferral, I always reach out to the applicant to ask them if they would like to defer, because it really should be on the applicant to do that, not on us to make that recommendation. However, it sounds like these are things that could be done in the next little while to be able to address those comments. Providing a topographical survey and doing that geotechnical is necessary in their mind to issue a permit, and we would be doing a variance to something that potentially can't be constructed. And while that may be fine, because the variance would then just be null and void if that were the case, there may be a better way if in case there is a different variance that's actually needed in the end. So it's always my recommendation that we get to the point where we have supportive comments from the Conservation Authority if possible. So I've outlined three possible options here, and one of them would be just holding the public hearing and then reserving a decision if the applicant is interested in doing that, essentially deferring the decision at the end, which gives the opportunity for those who've come to speak to the committee to be able to be heard and not have to come back to another meeting, which is great. But that's one way, and then they could come back with the the new information, maybe a revised letter from the Conservation Authority that would support this. The other option is I do have a potential approval decision with a condition in there that just says that the variance to this, the variance to those slope or to the side in the front yard are for areas outside the toe of slope. They've recommended a 6-meter setback from the toe of slope. I think unless they're willing to grant something different in that regard, we probably don't know enough about it to be able to do that. So I'm recommending we leave that in, and the variance would be to the other areas that are outside the toe of slope. And then the second condition would be that I've kind of added would be that they get a permit from the GSCA supporting the proposal. You know, that was just what I put on the table to help address those comments. It's not best practice to try to backfill these kinds of conditions in, but it can be done. And then, of course, the third would have been just to do a deferral, which we've already kind of moved past, an outright deferral of the application, but we're already in the hearing now, so it makes sense to continue on. It would be good to hear from the agent on the file, the applicant agent, to hear about how they would seek to address these comments. So we may want to recognize them next, and then after they've had a chance to speak, maybe go to the public with a final from the applicant later after it, maybe to address the public comments as well. I believe when in speaking with these folks here, they had a few questions, and I've tried that maybe weren't on the public notice. So I've tried to get a few of those answers so that we can provide some answers if they have a few questions when they do come to the podium.
Okay. Before we defer to the applicant, I'm going to ask the committee members if you have any additional questions for the planning staff at this point in time. No.
Excuse me, through you, Mr. Chair. No, I have some questions for the applicant.
I do as well. It's perhaps the right time then if the applicant would identify yourself and perhaps you can address some of the comments relative to the Gray Sawville Conservation Authority suggestions, and then I hope you will stay online and take some questions. We can't hear you. Are you perhaps muted?
Hello.
Hello.
Chair, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Sorry. Hello. Hello again.
Yes.
Sorry for the technical errors. So this is Arshad Siddiqui, architect and authorized agent for the property owners at 126 Starlight Lane, Meaford. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Thanks, planning staff, Dennis, to summarize the situation and explain the committee members about the minor variance application. I can confirm that we have already worked with Gray Sawville Conservation Authority last year, and we have received their approval with the 6-meter setback from the toe line of the escarpment, and the approval was provided in September of last year. So I guess when municipality send the file to conservation authority, it might have gone to a different reviewer and they might have thought the approval was not received, but we can provide the permit and approval stamp on the same proposal we are requesting variance for from Gray Sawville Conservation Authority. I hope that can address that concern. The the two retaining walls are basically almost flush with the grade level within the property. It is because of the stormwater drainage system. We have to maintain certain slope, and resulting in the retaining wall being a bit 1 meter and up high from the adjacent properties, and they are called as accessory structure as per the zoning bylaw. So in order to meet the zoning bylaw requirement for setbacks, these accessory structures are encroaching inside yards a bit. That's why this minor variance is requested. The actual house is within the zoning bylaw for the height, size, setback, lot coverage, MT approval for the front yard setback from the center line of the road, and the Gray Sawville Conservation Authority approval from for the 6-meter setback from the toe of the escarpment is received. It is the last zoning glitch that we are trying to resolve to get the building permit and go into the construction. I'm available to answer any question committee members may have.
So please correct me. You are saying that Gray Sawville has approved and given you a permit already addressing the issue of the 6-meter setback?
That's correct, sir. The permit was granted on September 8th, and I can provide a copy to planning staff. I may have missed the email from planning staff when they forwarded the comments from GSA. I did receive the comments from county, but not GSC as part of this minor variance application.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Committee members, do you have any questions?
Yes, I wondered, because this lot is, I guess it's unique in one sense, because there's a lot of environmentally protected land on the property. So if you exhausted all efforts in order to try and keep the retaining wall without having a variance?
Yeah, yes, sir. We have basically 65 to 70% of the lot, which is not usable at the back. On top of that, we are maintaining the 6-meter setback from the end of the environmental protection zone for the retaining wall to start. And from the front side, we have 1 foot. We have 42 meters from the center line of the road to be maintained by Ministry of Transportation, Ontario. So all of these kind of limits us to engineer the retaining wall the way they are to keep the stormwater management as per engineering standards and code and industry standards. The actual size of the house has not been increased from the zoning bylaw, so that's not the case. It's purely an existing grading situation which we are trying to resolve.
Yeah, thank you. Because what's going through my mind actually is the closer you put that wall out to your property line, the more you're diverting any excess water, which we know is going to come down that hill. So that's my concern. So that's why I'm asking if you've exhausted all efforts. And I haven't really heard that.
Yeah, we have exhausted all those options. We tried working with civil engineer to find a better slope that can work with. The idea is that stormwater will not go in the neighboring land. It will go towards the municipal, towards the street. So that's why the slope is maintained gradually towards the front yard and then out into the street or the road. The stormwater will not go into the neighboring property as a result of this retaining wall. It is more to protect neighbor from getting excessive stormwater because of this development. I believe there's the requirement for the grading and stormwater to be managed within the property. That is the reason of keeping these retaining walls in the design to keep the stormwater within the property.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just one more quick question then.
Sure.
If you put the retaining walls where they're supposed to be, put it that way, I guess that's my best word of use. Mm-hmm. That's not possible?
Yeah, I'm not a civil engineer, but we are working with a very good civil engineering company, Van Harden, and they did their research, calculations and everything. And they came back with saying that they cannot move the retaining wall any further internally. That is the reason minor variance was the only possible option for us.
Because of the size of the house? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, alternatively, we have to reduce the house drastically,
right?
Which is already less than zoning bylaw requirement. And
okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, if I can follow up to my friend's comments, the retaining walls with where they're proposed, runoff will have to be dealt with on the neighboring properties. There's no room left, it doesn't appear to me, to deal with runoff. We're talking about, and I'm old school, but I think it's 5 feet high, one of the retaining walls.
5.5, actually.
That's how bad my math is. It strikes me that the runoff from this onto both sides is going to be big.
I have a couple of, I have several questions as well. First of all, where is the house going to be located relative to the neighbors? Is it in line with the neighbors on either side, or is it farther to the front of the property?
This is in line with the neighboring properties,
Okay.
and it's basically behind that for the zoning bylaw requirement
Yeah.
and
Where,
MTO requirements.
thank you. Where is the maximum height? The maximum, it's listed as 1.67 meters, 5.5 feet. Where is that point located?
That is in the proposed driveway, the front yard driveway. That retaining wall is 1.63 meters high, which is adjacent to the, which is basically kind of 0.9 meters from the property line. That is where the maximum height is. The other height, which is maximum, is at the bottom of the escarpment environmental protection zone, but that's not part of the minor variance that's allowed. So that's within the setbacks limit.
So if I understand you, you're telling me the 5-foot retaining wall is 2.34 meters from the front yard setback.
No, yes, it is. It is. Yes, that's correct. Instead of required 7.5 meter, it is 2.34. But retaining wall appears 0.3 meter from the grade level of the property. It is the level difference between the property and the adjacent neighbor that is making the retaining wall look higher from the neighboring side and making it an accessory structure. So it's not like when you enter the property and you will see a high wall on your left. It will be flush to the grade, but the grade difference between this property and neighboring property is 1 meter, and coupled with the retaining wall height, that makes it 1.68 or 1.67 meters from the neighboring property. Am I clear on this?
You're clear, thank you. And the septic bed, which is at the front of the property, is it substantially elevated above the neighboring property?
No, sir. It is within the grade. It is appropriately at the natural ground level. It is the driveway taking the stormwater which is causing this retaining wall.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've just been able to confirm with our building staff that they do have a GSA permit for a 2-story single dwelling with septic system, but it doesn't appear to have been including the retaining walls in that GSA permit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant at this point in time?
I have
Sorry,
a comment.
David was going to be first.
Okay, go ahead.
If I could just, Mr. Chairman, through you to Denise, would the fact that the retaining wall wasn't included in that in the previous application, would that have affected their approval, do you think?
So I can confirm.
Can you rephrase that?
Sorry.
Can you rephrase that, please? Can you just say that again? I missed part of it.
Well, you had suggested you had checked that there was a proposal there, but there was a permit there,
Mm-hmm.
but it had been based on no retaining walls.
Yeah, the reply that I got back was it appears they have a GSCA permit for a 2-story single family dwelling and septic system. The site plan that was attached to the approval did appear to include the retaining walls. Not sure if retaining walls have been specifically approved. So I apologize for that. I wanted
That's what I
to
was saying
clarify
then.
what we had because we do have an open cloud permit application, so we are able to verify what's attached.
Ed?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, this may be for Denise. Drainage study, do they have to have a drainage study for this?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Gabe, I think you could probably confirm they would normally do a grading and drainage through their building permit, correct?
Yeah, that depends
Yes,
from the
correct.
zoning and the size of the acreage of the.
No, but on this particular
Yeah, in this
type,
particular theme would be a grading and drainage plan, which is usually
engineered.
stamped by a PN, by professional engineering, yeah.
So that permit was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'd like to call on members of the public if you would like to speak. If so, can you please go to the podium, identify yourself, and make sure the microphone is turned on? Thank you. Just push the button. It says talk. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Maria Badgen, and I am the owner of the adjacent property at 124 Starlight Lane. And my concern is the retaining wall and whatever excavation and drainage that's affecting that side. I've owned the property for over 30 years, and I've seen the storms that can come down and the flooding that is down there and the rivers that have taken out the driveway that we've had to redo. The other side where the retaining wall is, we tried to put a well up there. That ground is always mushy and soggy and mushy and soggy, and we have a cistern. So we never really pursued it because, you know, it's our sort of a seasonal type of residence for us. I just can't picture a side yard setback to be reduced that much closer to our property line because of what I've seen over the years as far as storms. And I don't know if you guys remember, but like the bottom of that whole neighborhood has been flooded. And we're still dealing with soggy land on that side where they want to do a retaining wall. And if that retaining wall is going to be 5 feet and closer to our property, then that means if kids are running around, are they gonna tumble and fall? Like that seems to be also not a safe height. So I would really like to have some more detail about their drainage plans and how it can possibly affect us.
Thank you. Does any committee member have any questions? I do. You talked about rivers of water flowing down.
Mhm.
Approximately how many times has that happened? Like, what is the frequency? Are we talking about annually, every 5 years, every 10 years?
There is a small spring, you know, that are flowing. You can see them during the fall melt, but once every 10 years, there's this flash flood. Like once when we came up, and it just comes suddenly, and like you open the door up and it's literally a river. It's taking the driveway out. It's missing, you know, the vehicles because of the way that it is in the natural flow. So I'm not sure who's doing this study, but the escarpment is really fragile there, and I really don't want to see our property affected by anything.
But what you're talking about is essentially on the opposite side. It's on your driveway.
Oh, no, it comes
side.
from that side too. There's
Okay.
rivers that go on both sides. The
Yeah.
heavier river is on the other side, but the river is definitely flash
yeah.
flooding there too.
Now, there is a row of, it's not really trees, it's more foliage that's there.
Mhm.
Is that on your property or is that on 126 Starlight
The
Lane?
properties go like this. I'm not exactly sure at this point what tree is on the property line.
Because that makes a significant difference if those are all going to come out.
That's correct.
When they build this house.
Because the properties, well, they're fairly large. They're 100 feet in front.
Yeah.
They just go up along, you know, quite a distance up. But that foliage is protecting. And I'm pretty sure that it's on an angle like this. So a good portion of it is our property, but I'm not sure how much of it is theirs. So.
If the applicant is still on the line, do you know whether where the property line exists? Yeah,
So it's not clear where the property line exists means with respect to the tree.
yes.
So as part of this uh, development, we are not demolishing any tree. So and the retaining wall will have a guardrail of 1.1 meter high as per Ontario Building Code, considering the height difference, as Never rightly mentioned. And I am not clear about the introduction of retaining wall uh, being counterproductive to the stormwater management or the rainfall events we are having. It is more to keep the stormwater management, the stormwater within the property and not having any impact on the neighboring property. That's the whole point of retaining wall. We can move the retaining wall 0.3 meters in and we can reduce the house, say 100 square feet, and then it will be the same situation. So I hope that can address neighbors' concern that it's really not going to impact them. It's going to make it better for them to the stormwater which is free flowing into their property will be controlled because of this development.
Mr. Chair, our Secretary Treasurer just forwarded me the approved grading and drainage plan, which was peer reviewed by our engineering team at Ainley and was deemed acceptable. So I don't know if that helps the discussion. So as we all know, no development is supposed to impact negatively any other properties. They are to manage their own water on site. And that is the purpose of having it peer reviewed, that we've also double checked and agree with the proposed grading and drainage plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not touchscreen, I'm sorry. Terry, the chair was asking if it shows the side of, it does. I was just confirming Denise just, yes.
Can you fully complete the sentence?
Can you formulate the question to Denise, because she would be able to respond.
Or just state it so that you know what we know what you were looking for.
If it shows the area.
I just wanted to make sure that the grading plan that has been approved included these retaining walls, because that obviously makes a huge difference on the water flow.
And not that this helps right now. I'm sure that the neighbors and things are never going to be satisfied till they have had a chance to look, but we're happy to show the drawings. I mean, ideally we could have maybe showed them ahead if we'd had time to anybody that wanted to see them in our office, but it probably doesn't satisfy anybody on the fly. But if tomorrow, after whatever decision is made, sorry, Maria, is it Maria? Maria would like to come by, and it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you know what I'm saying? Or even by email, we could probably share some of these drawings so they can take a look and decide if they feel that this has satisfied their concerns. But it probably doesn't help today because nobody will have time to digest it right at the moment. But if that is outstanding, we can always work with anybody that wants to take a look at the drawings.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. If the applicant's still there, and I think I heard you correctly when you said that this is going to benefit the neighbors by putting this wall in. Did you say?
Sorry, Mehmet, can you repeat your question?
I'm like, this retaining wall is going to benefit the neighbors?
Yes, because my understanding is that as per the new laws in Ontario, the stormwater should be managed within the property and not the adjacent. It should not be dumped into the adjacent lot, and that is why we see third-party companies getting involved into the review and peer review, making sure that all the engineering methods are used to keep the stormwater management within the properties. That's going to benefit the neighbor.
You can understand, sorry, you can understand my concern when I look at a drawing and I know that waters runs downhill and we've just moved the wall closer to the neighbor. I'm going to be diverting water onto or closer to my neighbor at least. That's why I'm having a hard time to understand. I guess I'm not an engineer. I'll
Right.
grant you that.
Basically, yeah, the idea, sir, is to gradually slope the water towards the road, and that's why this slope from the high slope rear yard is managed through the retaining wall. If you see the Google Street View of this area, you will see the level difference between this property, the project property, and the adjacent neighbor is very visible. So any development that will take place on this property will be higher than the grade level of the adjacent property, and hence this stormwater management is also part of this development. But the whole engineering is done to keep the stormwater away from neighboring property, slope it nicely. Obviously, it is not designed for, I'm sure, thunderstorms or one of the event which can happen, but for a normal rainfall events, as per, I'm sure the experts have reviewed, so there must be a proof of the strategy to verify the design.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I still struggle with why retaining wall number 1 needs to be so high and so close to the road. Can you explain to me why it's necessary?
Yes, so the height is basically from the neighboring side. It's not from the project side. It is 0.3 meter above the proposed driveway. So it's almost flush like a curb, but from the adjacent property, it appears a high structure uh, because of the level difference between the two properties. And why the retaining wall had to go as close to the front yard as it is to gradually slope the water towards the make sure that the water doesn't go into the neighboring property to an extent where it is merging to the front yard and the road on the front side. So it is to limit the stormwater not going into the neighboring.
So in a sense, when you do the grading plan, the elevation of this lot is going to be higher than the neighbors on both sides.
Yes, that is the existing condition.
David.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the applicant, 2 real quick questions. What type of material will be used for the retaining wall? And what do you see the purpose of the retaining wall at the back of the house to be?
Back of the house is to maintain the slope of the toe of the environmental protection area is quite hilly. So to maintain the slope, how should I say, to avoid any settlement of the soil because of this development, the 6-meter setback was required by the conservation authority, and then the retaining wall is put to further make sure that there is no impact to the natural protected area because of this development. The soil will stay as is on the natural side of on the undeveloped side of the property. Does that answer your question?
And what kind of construction is this retaining wall? Is it a concrete poured wall?
Yeah, it will be concrete blocks with poured concrete into the hollow, and it will be reinforced, and then we will put glass guardrail around to for the for the protection due to height difference.
Just the way that retaining wall is sloped at the back, I don't know how you're going to stop water from not going over onto the neighbor's property, and given that it's concrete block construction back there too.
In the,
Is the final grade on the house side before you get to the start of retaining wall 1 higher than the empty lot beside it?
sorry, can you repeat that question, sir?
The final elevation of the land between the house and the neighboring lot, is it higher there than the lot at 128?
It is higher as existing, and it will be maintained, I would say. The the slope is working in a way that the height will become more stable. Like now it's if you see it's a slope there between the two properties. It will become more like a retaining wall and a level difference between the two properties after the development. Does that answer your question?
It answers the question. Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Okay, I'll sum my thoughts up, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not an engineer by any means. But I can't wrap my head around water running down that hill, hitting a wall and it not dispersing sideways. And somebody would have to prove to me that that's not going to happen, that it's not going to embellish itself out onto neighboring properties. So if I can be convinced that, and as I say, I'm not an engineer, an engineer study, I would be happy. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I guess what I'm asking here is what would help the committee feel better? So I can only say that we have a peer-reviewed, an engineer did a grading and drainage study. We had it peer-reviewed by Ainley Engineering. They've accepted it. So two engineers have approved the design for the grading and drainage based on the applicable law. So we have that. I have put a contact in. I mean, it's hard to do this on the fly, but I put a contact into Clint at the GSCA to say we seem to have a conflict, and I've uploaded to him the permit that we have to see if he's able to say, oh yeah, we've got conflicting information or not. I think one of the other options is to defer till we get that answer, or you could choose to pass the decision that I gave you, which says we need the permit. I think if the permit stands, the one that we have, then those would be very easy to clear. If for some reason there was an error, then that might have to get resolved. But does one of those two options seem like they'd be viable at this time, or are there outstanding things that you would want included?
I think from my perspective, we're not very comfortable with the drainage issues. And we would like the opportunity to review the drainage and the letter from Ainsley in the peer review. But the other thing that I still struggle to wrap myself around is what is the legitimate reason for putting the retaining wall so close to the front property line. To me, it's nothing more than a slope issue. And I can't justify a variance based on their preference of how much level front yard they'd like.
And so, Mr. Chair, is it something that you would like to propose an alternate decision and maybe some variance, but not all the variances?
I mean, I think if we're comfortable with the drainage and grading, then I think some of us have less issue with retaining wall 2 because it only goes across the back and partially down one side. And then it basically ends up, water would take the normal course that it would between once it passes the edge of the two houses. But I struggle with retaining wall 1, which in theory we could separate the two. Any other thoughts from committee members?
Just quickly, we've talked about the 100-year storm and stuff like that, but every spring out there, that side hill melts. And I'm sure my partner beside me will have seen that the creeks down there coming off the side of that hill, just roaring. And
and I think that's basically why they want retaining wall 2 there,
absolutely
to protect the back of the property. Sorry, just a quick question, and Maria, do you have anything at the back of your property? I didn't walk all the way up to go to the back of your property.
No, it's sort of left.
Okay.
And I do see the spring rivers, and that's my concern because that wall looks like it's going this way, and I'm not sure how much more we can handle before we have. I don't want any water coming, any more water coming. Like the natural drainage was just going down the hill, and you can see where these spring creeks flow. Like it's very evident.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we're all aware that a year ago that highway was closed. There's a water coming down that hillside, and it clogged the bridge just past that property, and Highway 26 was closed. That's a comment. I mean, we can't help those things; those are acts of nature. But my closing thought is, as I said, I'm not an engineer, but I'm not comfortable with passing something until it's proven to me that it's not going to affect the neighbors. So I don't know how we word that, but that's my thoughts. That's my closing thoughts.
David?
Mr. Chairman, through GSC's final comment is that they recommend a deferral until such time as a topographical survey and a technical or a geotechnical study are completed. I don't think we've even discussed that yet.
But by the same token, GSC's already issued the permit.
That was provided to them, sir, as part of the approval process, topographical survey and
So
study.
But this is a new comment from them on July 18th.
I know it's I think this is a miscommunication between their staff, but.
So, and, you know, to Arshad's point of wondering if maybe there was miscommunication between a new staff and an older staff or whatever, they've gotten back to me and said that they're looking into it. So they recognize there's a discrepancy, and it was before Clinton Stredwick, the author of this one, started. He's not seeing it in the file. So it's perhaps there was this data already provided. And that he just wasn't able to get that information when he wrote his letter. So I guess what I might wonder is, does my condition saying you need a GSCA permit as a condition of the approval, and the one that says you must stay outside of the 6-meter toe slope area, because that has, if they haven't confirmed that they agree with where the toe is, then it would just make sure that the variance is outside of that. Does that help if you passed it with those conditions, or do you think there's another condition that might help? Or do you feel like you need more information and you want to park this and ask for certain things and then come back?
I leave it up to the committee, obviously, but I'm thinking that perhaps we should defer this decision until such time as we can get clarification from GSC on whether they are comfortable until the committee members have had adequate time to look at the drainage study as well. And I would like further clarification on why there is a real need for retaining wall 1 to come as far forward on that lot as they have requested in the variance. But we can defer that too.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Following up what you're saying about the potential deferral, like I have all the documents from GSCA, from Inley, both the letter of review and the drainage and grading plan, like showed, so I can provide them to you as soon as possible, as soon as we finish this, just
Yeah.
with the review.
But we would like
Okay.
time to.
Of course,
to read
like,
them and
that's why I
study
said
them
like that.
possibly. Yeah. Any thoughts on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I agree wholeheartedly with your comments, and I would be in full support of that.
May I have a motion then to defer this decision till a future date, till some of these, this information is available to the committee members? So moved by David, seconded by Ed, all in favor? That motion is carried. So we apologize, but we're just not comfortable making that decision yet. And hopefully we can look at this and make a firm decision at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that closes the public portion of this meeting. Thank you for your comments and your attendance. The next meeting is August 28th. And since we are likely to deal with this deferral, we know we have a meeting. Thank you.